Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Rahul Patel. Thanks for being on the show again, Rahul.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Whitney. I appreciate it. Like I said, you haven't kicked me off yet, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you've heard Rahul, and I talk about numerous things on the show, and you can go back to show 217, 294, 332, 376, where we've talked about numerous parts of this business, and from Rahul's perspective as an attorney, they're very valuable shows for you to go back and listen to, without a doubt. But a little about him, just in case you missed those shows. He's an attorney, licensed MBA agent, real estate developer, professor, speaker, and serial entrepreneur. He's most commonly known as a managing partner of Patel Gaines, the fifth fastest growing law firm in the nation, where he represents over $8.5 billion in commercial property. Rahul has been featured in USA Today, Forbes, Fortune, Business Week, Texas Lawyer, and the Business Journal, where he was named Man of the Year, an outstanding lawyer, and a 40 under 40. So, Rahul, thank you again for your time. I always enjoy our conversations and just you being willing to share your expertise with the listeners and myself. But is there any kind of updates you want to give to the listeners before we jump in?
Well, I just wanted to say, if you give Whitney $25, he'll say some really nice things about you, right? No, but I appreciate that introduction. Well, I will tell you, this is my favorite part of the year. For a lot of folks, it's a stressful time of the year. You've got holidays, you've got family, you've got year-end stuff, you've got budgets, you've got all the stuff that you're trying to do. But I think it's one of my favorite times of the year because what I try to tell folks is this is your time to plan for the next year. And so this is a perfect topic we're really talking about. I think it's really important. You take it for granted as the year end, and sometimes people are just, I feel like, crawling to the finish line. I feel like this is the last mile of a sprint that we're trying to cross. We're actually looking forward to winning and crossing the finish line. So a lot of the things that we put into play, I think this is a great time to reflect on the things that you did, things that you didn't do, things that you set. So one of my rules, kind of just to say real quick, is, people have goals, write them down and post them somewhere where it's public. So you can go back and look at them and remind yourself what you're doing. I know it sounds like cliche to do that, but if you put it on Facebook, you get the reminder every, hey, a year ago today, and it'll pop up on your own. And if you haven't hit some of those things, you really want to question, why, what can you do to accomplish those goals? So it's a great time. I love what we're talking about today. So I always say, just get ready. If you're kind of struggling to get over the finish line, get some coffee, get a workout in, and go finish the year strong, because there's still time left to do that.
Nice. So, Rahul, talking to lots of people in this industry, when you're getting started, it seems like such a big hurdle to cross when you start to think about this branding issue, how do we brand our business and growing our business, branding, networking, all those things. And I'm looking forward to, to hearing your side of this, especially from your experience and your knowledge from being an attorney. And so, I know a lot of people that are listening as well are thinking about how to brand their business. They're looking forward to probably doing that in the new year, one way or the other, and getting this started. And so, help us to get started with thinking about growing our business and branding from your perspective. And then
first things first, what I tell you is you have to have a plan. And so, most folks kind of look at this and say, well, I'm going to start doing this. I want to market more. And then they don't know what to do. And so things start coming to them and they start doing it, and they find it either be successful or unsuccessful, and then they give up. So, I want to build a brand, and then somebody comes in them and gives them a marketing advertisement or maybe something to put in a journal, and they do it and they don't see the rewards from it. So I would say you really have to set out a plan. Number two, for marketing specifically, give yourself an honest budget and say, this is what I'm going to spend this year. And this is what I'm going to do, and then track it. See if it actually leads to some growth, and it might take some time. Be patient with that. But, if you set yourself a budget, if it's it can be anything. It's small, $5,000. Well, now you know what you have to spend, and I know you know how to articulate that, and then you are much more focused to go in with a plan. So set yourself a budget, set yourself a target, and try to track that ROI. I'll tell you a story.
I find that, when I got started, I didn't have any idea what it was going to cost to do all this branding and marketing.
Right.
I had no idea.
And so, and that's the thing. I think there's a fear, and then there's also sometimes a misbelief that it doesn't matter. I can tell you a story about when we first started the firm. I remember I put in some money to start the firm, get it going. By the time we got computers and equipment, some first month security deposit, all that stuff, we were almost out. And a friend of mine said, hey, there's a golf tournament that I want you to be at. There's some really kind of important people I want to introduce you to. And he was head of this organization and said, I'll make some introductions. And I said, okay. And I looked at the sponsorship levels and I said, okay, I want the top one. And he's like, man, that's $5,000. Like, I'll still introduce you. And I was like, no, that's the one I want. And I remember making that commitment, and my law partner looked at me and said, you realize we have like $3,000 in the bank account, right? And I said, I know, but I don't have to pay it for 30 days. But we'll get it done. So I went in with a focus, right? I went in and I knew who the membership roster was. I knew what that sponsorship level was going to get me. It got me a list of who was going to be there. It got me a list of who the teams were aligned with. I got to be able to say, hey, look, I want to play golf with this specific person. Can you partner me with this person so I can sit in a golf cart with him? And so I be very, very specific, and I went with the plan of who I wanted to meet. I did my research on those people that were going to be there. So when I bumped into them, I knew who I was, what I was going to talk to them about. And I was very specific. Hey, you overpaid on your property tax. I saw your 2016 value. I saw your 2012 value, 11 value. Here's where I think you should be at. And it was stunned that I had done my homework there. And so I got 5X my golf sponsorship amount in that month moving forward. But I had to go in very, very specific. That's one of those things I think is when you have a plan and you're specific about it, then you're going to be more focused. If you want to go to more trade shows, more conventions, a lot of times your business, especially in, real estate syndication, you want to go to these conferences, right? Well, I say is if you're going to go to a conference, find out who's going to be there. Find out who do you want to meet? What do you want to learn? Right. And do your homework before you go there. I always find that if someone approaches me and they've done their homework on me, say, hey, I really love what you're doing. Oh, what is it that I'm doing? And they kind of don't have a specific answer, then I know that person doesn't really love what they're doing. They found my name, they saw my name, they may not know, but they haven't done enough due diligence in me for me to say, yeah, let's go grab an hour of lunch or let's go grab cocktails tonight, because then the value isn't there. So if I look at this, and I remember when I was young, I spent the time and energy to plan for what I was going to do. So whatever your strategy is, I see today people taking their marketing and not spending much money at all. They're doing it all on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, which is almost free, virtually free. All you need is your cell phone, which everybody has. You just need your voice and some images and you get everything done. But you have to have a plan. You have to figure out what you're going to do, who you're going to attack, who you're going to add, things like that. So step number one, figure out a plan. Number two, if you had a plan in 2019, 2018, 2013, when you started, look at it, pull it out. It's funny, someone from my office just walked in and showed me, I don't know if you can see this, but in this slide that I have here, there's an image there. It's got a little business plan and a Kinko's box. That's from 2012, before I started my firm. I printed it, went to Kinko's, and I had it bound and stapled there for me. That plan, if I look back at it, there's some foundational tools that exist today, but that plan isn't what I'm carrying forward today. So, be ready to scrap it at any time. Deviate from it. Don't be afraid if things didn't work. But if you don't set it out, then you're never going to set yourself up for success or failure. And you'll learn just as much from failing from your business plan that did or did not work.
I just find too, if you don't write something down like that, whether it's goals or a plan, it's hard to improve. It's hard to know even where you failed at, but when it's written down, then you can improve it as you go.
That's it. Share it with people too. Challenge yourself. I mean, tell people and when I say be outrageous, doesn't mean, you say, hey, all of a sudden I'm going to slam dunk over Shaquille O'Neal, right? That's not going to happen, right? That goal is probably never going to happen. It's probably a better chance of winning the lottery, but be outrageous with your goals, and if you don't do that and articulate, set yourself up for that and say, hey, I'm going to do $30 million in deals. And the biggest deal you've ever done is 100,000. Well, okay, fantastic. Set it, because it doesn't mean you can't do it, but you got to figure out how are you going to get that. $30 million in deals over the year means you got to do at least $7.5 million or whatever it is, a quarter. How am I going to set that up? What do I got to do? And what's my plan to approach that? Because then you'll find out maybe my goal isn't realistic for year 2020, right? Or it is, but I have to execute on every single instance. And I think one of the things that people do is they do what I call a lot of time burn. They do things, they find it to be productive, and they have no clear follow-ups. One of my biggest pet peeves with people is when I take a meeting or I go have a meeting and there's no clear objectives that have been articulated either prior to the meeting or after the meeting. So I always try to say, okay, fantastic. This was a great thing. But to recap, 1, 2, 3 are the items needed from me. And then 1, 2, 3, and 4 are needed from you. When do you think we can have those articulated? And so if somebody doesn't follow up within the time frame, 7 days or 15 days that we've set there, then I realize that this is likely going to be a time burn for me and I move on, right? And so you kind of have to set yourself up for the same thing. And especially in the syndicate business, if you're trying to do syndicate, someone says they can raise money, they can find you deals, they can do whatever it is, set yourself up for success and find out why didn't they hit those? What were they doing? So yeah, I mean, don't write them down. Don't be afraid to share them, and don't be afraid to set them to the point where they are tough to get to, because if you set them so low, then you won't really grow either.
Yeah. And you're not going to push yourself either.
Yep.
If you're not being pushed, then you're not going to grow.
Correct. So, kind of talk about, people ask me, how do you build a brand? What are your tools? And folks kind of stop at logos and letterheads and website. To me, that's not really a brand at all. It is merely your storefront for people to come into, and you find out your brand when you come in there. Much like a restaurant. Many folks have a favorite restaurant, where if you pull up a friend for the first time, you go, ooh, that's where we're eating. The restaurant isn't the facade. The restaurant is when you're in there, all of the things that make that a great place, right? And so those are the different tools that you have to set up. So what I say is I have kind of what I call 5 steps to truly branding once you got past the initial set. Number 1, and most foremost to me, is educate. If you can educate the public, educate everyone within your target audience about who it is you are, what it is you do, and why it is that you are doing it, then people tend to want to come and seek you and gravitate towards you and seek your advice. And eventually they'll know your name and your brand, and they'll know that you're not just there to sell a client. So for example, you and I, we've gone on this many podcasts. I've never shared you my business card. I've never shared my fee agreement with you. I've never asked you for a roster of who's listening. Because if people are listening and they're learning from me, and they have an issue, or something comes up, they're going to contact me or someone within the firm, because they feel like, hey, this is somebody I want to talk to and gravitate with. So I always say educate yourself too. At the same time, if you don't know something, learn. If you don't know why you're doing something or how to do it or how to be more effective at it, start to educate. So educate isn't just outward, but it's also inward. Number 2, really go ahead.
Say like educating others, like a thought leadership platform such as a podcast or meetup or blog or something.
Whatever
like
that
channel.
Is, anything, whatever you feel comfortable with. Some people like to write. They're not a speaker, right? They don't want to speak. They want to write. They like to post a blog. Might write on Instagram. They might write on LinkedIn. I mean, whatever that is, find a way to get your message and your voice out. And that's what I would say, whether it's the opportunity as you grow and advance. For me, I've been fortunate enough to speak at conferences. So now I set my goal this year to speak at least 2 conferences that have at least 2,500 attendees or more, right? A big stage in front of a large group of audience. And so that's a goal that I want to set. And, I'm pretty close to getting that set lined up for the year, but that at the same time, you can't just set that goal and say, okay, well, how am I going to do that? I've got to set it now, because conferences are start to book today for June, July, August. They get their speakers lined up. They have to have submissions. They have to have requests. So if I come June during the convention circuit and go, man, I didn't get anything, it's too late. I got to do that today. So yeah, I would say in terms of education, whatever it is that you can do to get your voice out, I would make that an initiative and priority doing. Today, you don't have to be have been somebody who's done $1 billion worth of deals to be able to educate. And you can also seek education at the same time. If you're not ready enough to educate, then seek education. Get onto forums, ask people some questions, find out, and show your value, because maybe you can find a partner there that actually serves the opposite of what you're able to do, and they're looking for someone like you, right? So if you can't educate yet, then seek education yourself.
Okay. No, that's great. There's lots of ways you can start to educate
number
people.
two, I always say build a culture, and that can start with yourself, and it can start with one or two people that you're with, but build a culture. And if you've got an apartment complex, you just bought one, you did a syndicate, build a true culture. And if you have a small 4-unit condominium complex, you say, well, I can't build a culture there. Yes, you can. You can build a culture by knowing who your tenants are, right? Starts right there. Getting to know who they are, finding out why it is that they're renting from you, why it is that they're in the city that they're in. What is it that they like about the place? What is it that they don't like? And so you can help build a culture around them. So if you don't treat your tenants and you only have 3 or 4 with care, then how are you ever going to treat 5,000 tenants that you have with care at one point, right? And again, this doesn't mean just giving things away for free, but really learning about stuff. And you'll be surprised because we have this goal in life that says we're going to provide people amenities. It's one of my biggest kind of, I call, again, for those in the real estate world out there, really evaluate your amenities. Because I would tell you that when you list the amenities, half the time, I don't think that reaches your true target audience of saying what an amenity is. Because many people have those things with them. They bring them, they travel along with them. There's a hotel brand out there that provides workout clothes. When you get in, they provide you clean, fresh workout clothes that you can leave behind if you're on that circuit. So it's one of those things where you say, well, why is that working? Well, there's been a series of people who probably go, wow, I want to work out, forgot my clothes, forgot my shoes. So finding out truly what is a valuable amenity versus just doing it. I see a lot of workout, exercise facility, it says exercise facility. I love to work out. So you look at that and you walk in and it's like a 11-year-old treadmill and a 5-year-old gym set. It's not an amenity to me. Get rid of it. You're better off putting in a study room, putting in there. How often are people using it? And if they're not using it, why? Why aren't they using it? Right? Ask the questions, because at the end of the day, it's not an amenity. And if people are not using it because they don't like it, there's a gym right across the street, then you better use that space. Rent that out as a facility. Give everybody a contract with someone across the street for a gym membership and say, hey, look, if you provide a gold gym or Planet Fitness, it's normally $10 a month. But because you're a member here, it's $7 a month. And now you just got rid of that dead space that you had in there, right? So really build a culture with your employees, what you're trying to do, who you are, build that culture and kind of grow. And then the kind of third step to that is develop your company, not just yourself. So as you see people that are within you, find out what it is. Just like I said, find out what your tenants are for. The guy that's your manager, somebody that's working with you who's in the sales department, marketing department, leasing department. Find out what they're trying to do. Why are they here? Like, why did they take this job? I mean, there's a reason that they're there, especially when you acquired a complex. Find out what it is why they're still here. I mean, how long have they been there? What are their ultimate goals? And you can sit there and set some examples. For example, we have somebody who's interned here. She's going for a master's in accounting now. And so she wants to be a CPA. And I asked her the other day, I said, why do you want to be a CPA? And she's like, oh, I'm really good at numbers and certain things. I said, I know, but what about a CPA do you want to be versus something else? Did you know that these options are available as well with the master's in accounting? So you really kind of open up somebody's horizon that may not have had an idea as to why somebody might think that they're in the maintenance division of your apartment complex, but they see a lot of things going on, but they may not say anything. Say, hey, I keep replacing this, keep replacing this, keep replacing this. So if we just put in the capital investment to just get a new unit, then we probably I would spend less time fixing it, less money fixing it, and I can actually go and fix the other 3 or 4 things you want me to do. So really develop your company, not just yourself, and it starts with everyone, because you'll be surprised how many people within your organization have valuable input. You're just not seeking it, right? Because you don't believe they have something to seek, or you're too busy to seek their information.
Is there a specific way you reach out to other employees or within your organization to seek that out?
Yeah. So when we first started, I had a mission where I would spend 30 minutes a week with everybody, right? And it was kind of not about a task or something like that. And now it's kind of morphed into 30 minutes a week with certain people, CFO, CMO, COO, and then they go back and spend 30 minutes in turn with their team. So I would say you got to find a way to spend some time with them, take some people to lunch, And it doesn't stop. I mean, you gotta make time for the people that are around you. One of the things that I implemented this year, as we have grown 3 offices across the state with multiple people, different leaders, I implemented kind of what I call my office Mondays. I used to take meetings whenever the time slot was available, things would get booked, and then I'd be racing around for lunch, racing around for a dinner event. I'd be on a conference call. So I set aside my Mondays for what I call my internal team. So I rarely take an outside type of conference call on Mondays. I really, I don't spend a lot of time. I don't take an outside the office meeting unless it's absolutely critical. I try not to travel on Mondays. And what I do is I set up my team meetings on Mondays. So my marketing team meeting, my property tax team meeting, I meet with my accounting team. So whatever they need for the week, they can accomplish it because they've got, so they also have a habit then to get everything on Monday. Say, I've got this coming up. This is coming up. What do you want me to do here? This is, do we have any meetings this week? So they can be prepared and they can set their week up for success too. So I'm not coming to them on Thursday, say, hey, all of a sudden, boom, boom, I need this. Because they didn't plan for it, right? So I would say really in order to develop yourself, just truly spend time, talking to people. And if your company and organization is already really big, then start with the top. So, start with people that you haven't spent some time with. And if you find yourself, hey, I already spent time with those people, go the other way around. Find people that you haven't talked to. Find property managers that you haven't spoken to, because now you have somebody who's in charge of all your property managers, right? Go talk to some of the property managers, because they may tell you some things that they may not feel comfortable telling their boss, direct boss. But without trying to point a blame to who it is, learn about what it is, because sometimes it's not about articulating a blame. Say, hey, I don't want to know what John's not doing well. What I want to know is, what are we not doing well? What can we improve upon? And when they start to say, hey, well, if John, well, look, let's not focus on John. Let's focus on what is it that we can do, and what do you believe we can do generally better? Give me some initiatives and steps. So just this last week or last month, I sent out everybody to send me an interdepartment report. And the department report asked 4 questions. What do we not do well as a team this year? What are we best at? What's one change that you would make for next year? And what will it be, and how will you impact that? Or how do you believe that we can have an impact with that? And then lastly, give me some feedback on the specific software that we use to do your job. This is the software I've given you, and give me some specific feedback on that. And each one of them gave that to me in a written situation. I said, look, guys, I try to avoid anybody's name in it, but I want you to be open, honest, and candid. And I'm not going to go, hey, this person said this about you. I am competent enough to take that in and filter that and say, hey, one person's not entering the information correctly. So it makes the downstream people's process that much harder. So I can kind of come back and say, okay, let's talk a little bit, babe. What's your process when you input, right? Let me watch you for a little bit. I just want to see kind of what you're doing, how you're doing it, so I can give you some tools for tip. Seeing this, say, okay, look, the thing that's happening is you're forgetting to put this in when you do, because you go back and wait for it. What if you just waited and got that information, had a checklist, send this off, and then pass that off? Yeah, that would be great, right? Because I'm always waiting on billing for this department, so I can't put this in because sometimes it's not their problem or their specific fault that it's not happening. It might be another chain that person down here is not understanding that they wait on. Does that make sense?
And you wouldn't know if you didn't ask.
You wouldn't know it. So that's been, again, some folks about a page and a half. A couple people gave me 2 pages worth of notes that said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to improve upon. And it really, and I can then disseminate that throughout the team without being able to say, hey, look, Whitney's not doing this, right? And that's not what I want to hear. So I really try to make it a point to not make it a finger pointing session, because that becomes very easy, right? It's a process situation that we're trying to work on. And sometimes it just turns, it's about a person, right? I mean, there's just no other way around it, but rarely is it, in my opinion, when you have good people around you, it's usually not about people. It's more about, have we understood the dynamic of the situation?
Yeah. All right, Rahul. So we've educated everyone in our audience. We've worked on building a culture. Now we're focusing also on developing other people in our business other than just ourselves. What's the fourth one?
I always is innovate. Find out how you're going to be different. And so whatever that is, make a plan to do something different. And I say that with again, most great ideas come from other people's ideas, right? They take something and they improve on it. It's never really what I call an independent thought or an idea, but it's the ways to improve what they see. 25 years ago, you could never walk around and make a phone call, right? You had to go find a phone, put a quarter in, do this thing, and then call somebody, leave them a message. Somebody said, man, this sucks. If only we could just call somebody. And then somebody came up with a cell phone. Then somebody said, man, this phone's big. I wish it was smaller. I wish I could just send them a note rather than having to email it or having to call them about it. Then they said, man, why is there only 6 keys and I have to press it 3 times to get this number? What if there was just a keypad? So whatever it is it's usually an idea that's been improved upon because of something. So same thing within what you're doing is innovate. Find out, when I talk about building a culture and developing, find out what's not being done well, not just by you, but by someone else, and do it better. So I'm going to tie this back to a property. When you go buy it, one of my things I believe that people go in and buy and they do capital improvements. I'm going to go in and fix this up, make it better. Who have they asked in terms of how they're going to make it better? Because by making it better, what are they trying to do? They're trying to increase the rents and occupancy. Have they asked anybody what's most important to them? Have they done any kind of study as to what kind of group we have here? If we're near a military base, there might be some things that are more important to them than there might be near a student population base. So how do we know what it is that we're trying to do if you've never really asked? All you're doing is taking this arbitrary innovation stage and putting it into play. Because college students, for example, they don't like to do laundry. Like today's day and age, if you're around a campus, they don't like to do laundry. They don't have time to do laundry. They don't want to do laundry. So you come in there and say, I'm going to upgrade the laundry facilities. Is it being used? Is it better? Is it something that people are actually seeing and utilizing? Would it be better for me to create a situation where, I create a contracted price with a fluff and fold community, right? Or a company that says, hey, look, at the end of the day, they charge $6 a bag to do your laundry. And preferred rates, they pick it up 1 day a week. They drop it off the next day. And if you do a load of laundry, it's $2.50 a load. Wash, soap, shampoo, soap, fabric softener, all that stuff you put in is effectively costing you $4 or $5, but not to mention the downtime. Young, busy professionals, right? What's important to them? So I think a lot of those things you need to kind of really spend some time and innovate what you're doing before you're just going in and doing it. People come in there, they put new paint on there, they put new signage, they call it something new and fancy. They go from, the Glenmore Apartments, and I don't know if that's the name of somebody's actual apartment, just making that up, and call it, the Point. Well, that's cool. I like that from a branding perspective, but what's it doing to actually improve bottom line for you? Because it may not be doing anything, right? So I think same thing. Are you finding folks with a lot of dogs? Well, why not make a nice dog park, which is much easier for you to do than to redo the whole entire swimming pool, right? And so you really got to spend some time innovating what the previous guy did, especially if you're doing in this multifamily business, to tie back, is find what they've been doing not well or really well and make it even better, right? If you find the dog park to be incredibly well used, then look, fill the pool in with dirt, cement it over, or whatever, however it is you do it, concrete, pave it, put some artificial turf, and go make that a huge dog park, right? Because you might not be using the pool in Minnesota at all, right? So whatever that is really find some ways to innovate that based on true feedback. So if you really developed your company, educated yourself about what you're doing and where you are, you could really find some things that people would need more so than others. Same thing, like I said, if you're in the military service, and you might want to reutilize your club service, or families, maybe you lease that out to somebody who watches kids in the evening hours, a tutoring session, so now they can have some time, whatever those might be. Really spend some time. Kind of Clubhouse, I find Clubhouse to be a lot of wasted space. There's some really nice TVs, there's a movie theater. Do people use that?
I've always thought the same thing. It's
People
like
use that.
it's closed at night, or when most people would watch a
Close at 9
movie.
o'clock.
Or
And you want to sit down in your pajamas in a lobby and watch a movie. I mean, it's dead. It's a dead space. So I mean, why do it? Why just make that same dead space nicer? And then is anybody actually reusing it now? Right? Movie night at your apartment. Do people do that? Do people really do movie night at your apartment complex on Friday night? I don't think so. And maybe if they do, then do it even better, right? But if they're not doing it, why go in and just fix it, make it a little bit nicer and say, boom, we just did all these capital improvements? Because at the end of the day, it's not actually going to bring you more money, because that's what you're trying to do, right? And the last one, kind of beyond the innovation, is really spending some time with community outreach. Get wherever community you're in, whatever it is you're doing, create some mission statements and create an outreach program to them, right? And so if you're multifamily in the syndicate business, whether it's, finding time to give back to folks, if it's whatever it is, anything that you think is important to you, if you want to give somebody a head start in life, and whatever that is that you want to do, make it a point. There's so many things that you can do. You have low occupancy rates, and you're trying to increase the occupancy and try to do something, get creative, give somebody an opportunity to say, hey, look, you know what? You can't afford a year's worth of rent because of this price. You can't afford $1,000 a month. I got to have $1,000 a month. But at the end of the day, giving them $500 a month and getting them in, and for a year, increase the occupancy. Maybe you can find that through a church or group and make it as a write-off, or get some outreach by that. Say this, local multifamily developer decides to give away 15 apartments every year for the year at 50% subsidy of what the normal rate is. And at the end of the day, you will get outreach from that. People may reach out to you. People may see that you're somebody that you want to be a part of. Maybe somebody who invests with you is like, man, I really, he cares. I like what we're doing. And at the end of the day, if that sat vacant, didn't do something, who knows what that could turn into, right? So I would say figure out a way to have some part of community outreach to you, because at the end of the day, as much as you give is usually what you get back.
I find, when people think about growing their business, some type of community outreach is often forgotten.
Yep.
Or even just, being part of a local nonprofit and things like that. It will grow your business, but it's really, you have to think about, you're helping that nonprofit because you're passionate maybe about their cause or something like that, but you're going to meet people and people you're going to have more brand awareness because of it.
Have a purpose with it. Be driven, be purpose driven, right? And so what I say is, if you want to give some food out, or you want to do that, and let's say during Thanksgiving you want to feed, instead maybe do it at your clubhouse, host it at your clubhouse so people see what you're trying to do, and get some people into your clubhouse that might not otherwise have been there to learn about you. Whatever that is, be purpose driven with what you're trying to accomplish and do. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that can help you with each one of those deals.
All right, well, we're about out of time, about another minute, and but I know so many that are listening are thinking about these things or trying to focus on growing their business. So I appreciate the value that you've created or that you've provided, on that topic. But just a couple questions. I know some of these we've talked about in the past, but just in case listeners hadn't heard this before, but just the one thing that's contributed to your success.
Man, I would say just support. I've had a lot of support. When you'll be surprised that when you reach out to people that are part of your life, and you ask them for feedback, ask them for support, ask them for help, the support that you get is probably the most important thing, right? And so I say, find people that are supporting your cause and your mission and not trying to break it down, and spend as much time with them. There's a lot of folks that you've met throughout your life. And I would say is if they're not in the same, if they don't have the same purpose-driven mindset as you and the same moral values as you, then I would say, you don't forget them, but make time with those types of folks that are going your way. And so I think that's kind of, I always tend to say is, you end up gravitating towards yourself. Successful people find themselves gravitating towards people that are more and more like them in not just all these certain things, but things that are driving them, right? So folks, if you want to be healthier, you want to eat healthier, surround yourself with people who are wanting that same thing and then are committed to doing the same thing. But if someone who's like, oh yeah, I want to eat healthy, but then you see them consistently not eating healthy, you're going to set yourself up for failure by that. And so, it's not that, hey, I'm not going to be friends with you, but at the end of the day, like, this is important to me. I can't have lunch with you every day because I am trying to get healthier, right? And this is what I want to do. And you'll find yourself making that mix. So whatever that is, really, I would say find a support system. But the support I've gotten, not from my friends, my clients, my family, that's the biggest thing I can get. My coworkers.
And how do you like to give back?
This is interesting. This year, we actually just reevaluated that. So as a firm, we found ourselves giving back quite a bit overall in terms of different things, Leukemia Lymphoma Society, local animal missions and causes, and the local school. So this year, we really spent some time kind of setting up back to where 2020 is. What purpose-driven do we want to be with our giving? Because what we were doing is people reach out to us and say, hey, I want you to support the Army vets. Can you buy a table for this event? Can you do this? And we would find ourselves kind of torn with saying, well, that is a good cause. Typically, they usually are. And so how do we say no? How do we say yes? So what we did was created a couple of core pillars for us for 2020 and trying to identify buckets that fit that and then setting the budget for what we're going to do to give back towards that, right? So we can be more purpose driven with what we're going to do. So this year we made it a point to give back to our local law school that's been feeding, what I would say the growth of our firm. 6 or 7 of our lawyers come from the same law school. So we really wanted to find a mission to help them as students get over some of those challenges. And so we were able to give back bigger and better to that, to help set that up. And then maybe next year we might go in a different direction, but we've at least started the process there, and maybe somebody else can come in and pick that up. So I would say, for us, we just really spent some time being purpose driven with our giving as well.
I like that because it even goes back to the first part of the show. We were talking about having a plan and a budget, and you even did that with your giving.
Yep.
For this next year, you had a plan and a budget, and so you can be strategic and purposeful about how you're giving.
It helps everybody. Helps from a tax perspective, helps from a business perspective. You can tie back to your marketing perspective. So you're going to give something, then is somebody going to highlight that, share that? Some folks like to give and never get any recognition, and there's nothing. That's totally fantastic in that approach. But sometimes you can make that part of all 3 of your plans as well to help market for what you're trying to do as well.
Well, great show, Rahul. Thank you again for your time. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Welcome to find us on our website at www.patel, Patel, gains, gaines.com. You'll find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just follow us at patelgains.com.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by Life Bridge Capital. Life Bridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. Life Bridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.